This is Gene Monterestelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 280, originally aired August 9th, 2017. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Today, we're going to talk about a fundamental that underlines all of the work that I do. It shapes the way that I approach a problem, and it shapes the way I judge success when I am tapping for something. Before we jump into that, just a couple of quick reminders. First, a big thank you to everyone who supports the Tapping Q&A podcast. You too can support the podcast by going to tappingqa.com/support. We got some great thank you gifts if you choose to do that. Secondly, if you have not done so, you can still download our free 10-part guide to using tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on the big blue button. If you happen to be listening right now in the website, in the right-hand column, if you go up to the top of the right-hand column, you will see a blue button there where you can start getting that free guide absolutely free. One final note before we begin. If in the background you hear some birds, that is because a family of mourning doves have decided to make my window seal their new home. So occasionally when I am recording in the morning, you can hear them in the background. So know that we have some friends listening along just outside the window as well. So today I wanted to talk about a concept that underlines all of the work that I do. And in writing in the past and podcasts in the past, I have alluded to this, but I wanted to take the concept and tease it out and talk about it in a very specific way, because I've mentioned it to clients recently, and some of them were really surprised by it. So because it informs my work so much, it's useful, but I recognize I haven't done a very good job of articulating what's going on. And it basically comes down to the reason why I think we tap. The reason why we tap, obviously, is to feel better, to get relief. Like, those are kind of big picture things. But in the basic strategic approach to it for me, when it comes to tapping for emotional issues, our goal is to find a way to proportionate, well-informed emotions. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to break that down and kind of explain what that means to me. And then we're going to talk about how that impacts the approach that we take when we're tapping and how it impacts the way that I evaluate the success of tapping itself. So let's take the phrase itself. Proportionate, well-informed emotions. And for me, proportionate and well-informed are two separate clauses. So when I am having an emotional response to something, or one of my clients is having an emotional response to something, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of assessment to see if we can figure out which of those things might be out of whack. And you'll notice we're not saying that we want to be emotionless and that we want to be emotion-free, because emotions are really useful tools. Emotions are an internal guidance system in which our thoughts and beliefs are giving us feedback about the world around us. And each one of these emotions has a very specific piece of information attached to them. We feel angry when we perceive an attack, and it's the energy that is helping us to fight back. We feel sad when we are losing or have lost something that is important. And that could be a person, but it also could be an experience, like I've lost a job. Or it could be identity. You know, as I transition from one job to another, I'm losing the way I was seen in the past by others, and I'm losing the way that I used to define myself. And so therefore I feel sad. I feel frustrated when there's something that I want and I am not getting it. I feel fear when I perceive danger. And so when we have an emotion, it is information. And when that information shows up, the question now becomes, is it proportionate and is it well-informed? So the examples that I always give on the very base level, and we'll get into some more sophisticated real-life examples here in a moment, but is the information proportionate? When someone dies, it is appropriate that I feel sad. Again, when a loved one dies, I spend some time tapping. It's not because I'm trying to eliminate the sadness. I'm just trying to make sure it's proportionate. So it's okay to feel sad. It's appropriate to feel sad. It's good to acknowledge and recognize we're losing someone who's really important to us. If 7 years later, I'm crying 45 minutes 3 times a week because I'm going to lay flowers on their gravesite and I'm completely consumed by it and it wrecks the rest of my day because of that emotion, that's probably to the point where it's disproportionate. And when you look back on the last couple of days, I want you to think of a time where you had a disproportionate emotional response. If you've had one, it's very clear and very obvious what that is. So the second part, or the second clause in our phrase is it well informed? So if I am in my kitchen and a mouse runs across the floor of my kitchen and I jump on the table and I start screaming like a 5-year-old, that is a misinformed emotional response. The fear that I'm feeling is trying to keep me safe, but there isn't an actual danger there. The mouse can't hurt me. Actually, the mouse's eyesight is so bad it probably doesn't even see me. I'm just this giant blob of color it knows might be danger to it that it needs to get away from. So, when I am experiencing an emotion and I'm thinking about what's going on, the 2 questions I'm going to ask myself is this a proportionate, well-informed response? The place this conversation came up most recently and why I thought it would be good to share this with you is I was having a client call earlier this week, and I was working with a client who is in a situation where her father is very, very old. I think he is over 100 or approaching 100, and is in a situation that he's dealing with the health concerns and health crises of someone who is 100 years old. And my client, let's call her Debbie, just for ease of conversation. Debbie was in a situation where she was really angry over the process because her father is very hard of hearing. He wasn't actually keeping track of the information about his various medical visits. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to and was very stubborn and strong-headed. And so when Debbie came in from out of town to check on her father and was sitting down with the doctor and was getting all of the information from the doctor, there was huge pieces of information that she hadn't gotten from her dad. And so that she was really angry with the way that she was having information communicated to her from her father, and she was really angry with the fact that he wasn't making good choices to take care of himself. So through the lens of proportionate, well-informed responses, let's take a look at this. So anger. Anger is the emotion of feeling like you're being attacked. So when someone is making choices which is making our life more difficult, it can feel like an attack. Proportionate. Someone is struggling with a medical concern, you are angry at them, and it's making it difficult for you to have a conversation. So as we looked at this and as we started to reframe it, we recognized the fact that 1, it's really hard being old. 2, it's difficult when you have had control and you have been a domineering personality, which apparently Debbie's father had been, that all of a sudden you don't have control. 3, he's really hard of hearing. So even when information is coming to him, he's not actually getting it. So in reality, growing old sucks, and he's having a difficult time managing it. So instead of Debbie's father being this controlling jerk who was withholding information from her and was attacking her and making it difficult for her to care for her father, he's a broken man who's having a really hard time managing something. So what we've done is we've taken this experience and we've recognized the fact that the emotion of anger is not well informed, because anger feels like you're being attacked. And Debbie was not being attacked by her father. Because of the circumstances of the situation, it was really difficult for her to be a good daughter and take care of her father, but she wasn't actually being attacked. And so when she recognized that, and we recognized this through tapping and doing the work that we were doing, all of a sudden she recognized how she could be an advocate for her father and she recognized how she could push back on her father to get more information and be a part of the medical process, but do it in such a way where it wasn't coming from a place of anger. It might be coming from a place of frustration. Frustration, again, is this idea of we want something and we're not getting it, and it's natural and it's proportionate to be frustrated when you are battling a complicated medical system and trying to assist someone who is old, who is dealing with really hard medical things. And so we moved this from an anger at dad because he's being a strong-headed jackass and not letting anyone help, to frustration of this is really difficult. Disproportionate misinformed to proportionate well-informed. Another example. I had this years ago, but I like coming back to it when I'm teaching this particular concept. The client I was working with was really struggling with his workplace environment. And so as I was gathering information, we were trying to figure out what to tap on. I said, well, what's going on at work? And he said, everyone at work hates me. So inside of this, we have a piece of information that is creating an emotional response. So we're trying to see initially if this is a well-informed emotional response. Everyone at work hates me. So my first question was, really, does everyone at work hate you? And if you are walking into your workplace every single day coming from the point of view that everybody hates me, your response is going to be based on that piece of information. You're going to walk in with your dukes up trying to protect yourself. And instantly he acquiesced and he said, no, it's not everybody. And he listed 2 or 3 coworkers that he felt hated him. So we now have gotten to a place where it is slightly more informed, which means the emotional response is going to be different. So then the second thing that I challenged him on was, really, why do you think, or how do you know these 3 people who you just listed hated you? And as we had a conversation about it, we came to the realization that they had difficult personalities, they were working on things that were hard, and it wasn't that they actually hated him. So we have taken this experience of having a really hard time at work, and the first thing that we did is we challenged all of the statements of belief to see if they were well informed, which is another way of saying, is it true? Now, the instant we got away from everybody at work hates me, and we got away from these 3 people hate me, it didn't mean that all of a sudden he started walking into work and became a doormat, much like the example of Debbie I gave just a moment ago. But instead, once he recognized the reason why people were acting the way they were acting, he was responding differently. Because it wasn't as much a personal attack. It was still difficult. It still impacted him every single day. It still made his job harder. But dealing with an obstacle that is hard and dealing with intransigent people is different than dealing with people who hate us. Because when you hate me, or I believe that you hate me, I'm going to respond to that in a specific way. If you're incompetent and you're making my life harder, I'm going to respond to that differently. And for me, the energy of responding to incompetence is a better, more positive energy than dealing with the energy and the emotion of people who hate me. It's not perfect. It's not good. But when we're able to reframe to that place, it makes it easier for us to navigate. So for me, you can now see how this then becomes the lens that helps me to navigate the work that I'm doing with myself and the work I'm doing with my clients. It transforms my goal of getting an emotion from a 10 to a 0 or a 7 to a 5, which are all good things. I love a good SUD scale, and it's a great way of doing evaluation. But instead, the goal now becomes, I'm not trying to be emotionless and kill these emotions. I'm trying to have a proportionate, well-informed response. And when that becomes my goal, it's okay for me to have a tapping session and to start out angry and to leave frustrated. Because if my goal is to be emotion-free, I'm going to walk away from that tapping session disappointed. The goal is never to be emotionless. The goal is to have proportionate, well-informed emotional responses. So the next time you're experiencing something, the first thing you do, the first test is figure out, is it well informed? Are all of the statements you have about the situation true? Does everybody really hate you? Is your father being difficult, making it hard for you to help him in his medical circumstance? Understand where they're coming from. This is one of the reasons why working with a practitioner or someone else to tap with is so useful, is because oftentimes they can see the picture clearer than you can because they're not caught in the emotion, and they can challenge the statements that you have. I mean, that's a huge part of my work as a practitioner, is I've gotten very skilled at listening to a client describe what's going on and then teasing it apart to find the beliefs that are underlying it. Second, once you've figured out what is true and what is not, the goal is then to figure out what is the proportional response to this. Because there are times in which anger is great. When I worked in the county jail, some of my students, when I taught in the anger management class, were literally alive because of their anger. And that's not hyperbole. The energy of their anger was the thing that allowed them to fight their way out of dangerous situations. When a loved one dies, it's appropriate to be sad. But instead, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're feeling the emotion that is useful to help us to understand what's going on. So for me, that's the answer to why I tap around emotional issues, is to have a proportional, well-informed emotional response. It's the foundation of my work, but it doesn't mean that it's true. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you happen to be listening to this in the website, just go down to the comment section below and add your thoughts. If you want to drop me a note personally, you can always do that at Gene, Gene, at tappingqna.com. If you are listening to this in the website, if you click on the contact link up above, you can send me an email directly. And if you happen to be listening in the Tapping Q&A podcast app, just click on the contact button. You can leave me a voice message, or you can send me an email from right inside the app. I love hearing feedback from people like you. If you enjoyed this, and you know someone in your life who might appreciate this as well, please be my advocate. Pass this along. Don't spam your inbox. Don't send it to every single person in the world, but there might be someone you know who could really use this, and just pass it along. Also, make sure you check out the podcast archive at tappingqnapodcast.com. Between bonus episodes, double episodes, unnamed episodes, we have over 325 podcasts now. They're absolutely free of charge. If there's a tap along that you're looking for, if there's a topic you want to work with, we've talked to someone about it or we've tapped on it. Again, that's free. Take advantage of that amazing resource. And if you go there and download the Tapping Q&A podcast app, you will have access to all of those audios at a touch of a button on your Android or Apple device. I also have a number of the tapping scripts typed out, so you don't have to listen to the audio. You can just go to the text session and tap along. The Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.